There are moments in life when nothing seems overtly wrong, yet everything feels slightly off. The people around you act the same, the environment hasn't changed, but something within you begins to stir. There's a tension that doesn't go away. Small things suddenly feel heavy. The silence after conversations becomes louder. You may find yourself asking questions you never asked before, questions that don't come from restlessness, but from something deeper. What's happening isn't easily named, but it's real. Slowly, subtly, you're being moved inward, drawn into a process that feels like unraveling, but is in fact a beginning. Imagine this. You sit alone on the edge of your bed, knees drawn in, unsure if the silent ache in your chest is sorrow or something deeper. The days feel long, cluttered with confusion and invisible pressure. Friends begin to drift, your thoughts grow heavier, and even moments of solitude no longer offer peace, only more questions. Why do I feel like I'm falling apart? You whisper into the stillness, eyes fixed on the ceiling as if answers might carve themselves into the shadows. What you don't yet realize is that this crumbling, this quiet erosion of old habits, comfort, and identity isn't punishment. It's the soft and silent work of purification. The universe isn't destroying you, it's peeling back layers you no longer need. The beginning of transformation is rarely clear. It doesn't announce itself. There are no instructions, no sudden bursts of clarity. Instead, the process begins with subtle dissonance. You might notice yourself withdrawing from certain places or people, feeling disconnected from things you once chased. A heaviness grows in areas where there used to be certainty. This isn't regression, it's refinement. You're starting to recognize the difference between what fulfills and what merely distracts. The universe begins this sacred work, not through thunder, but through friction, a sacred tension between who you were and who you're becoming. If you're experiencing this, you are not lost. You are not being punished. You are not forgotten. You are being realigned. The universe has a way of removing illusions, not by explaining them away, but by allowing you to experience their weight until you're ready to release them. And so, the journey begins not with a sign in the sky, but with a deep inner whisper that says, something has to change. That whisper is the universe inviting you into a deeper becoming. What follows are not random events, but deliberate steps toward transformation. When the inner world begins to feel unstable, when thoughts become loud and self-doubt creeps in like a fog, most try to retreat or numb it away. Yet beneath that noise lies the raw material of change. You're not failing because you're struggling with an old behavior or battling recurring thoughts. Rather, the very recognition of what no longer aligns with who you're becoming is evidence that transformation is taking place. The tension you feel between the person you've been and the person you're becoming, that's the point where evolution happens. In that space, character is shaped. A sculptor does not smooth marble without striking it first. Likewise, the moments when your flaws come into view are not moments of weakness, but mirrors revealing where refinement is taking place. You're beginning to notice patterns that once ran unnoticed. You're questioning what used to feel natural. That's the consciousness being cleansed. The old programming is surfacing not to trap you, but to be acknowledged and let go. The universe, in its wisdom, knows that nothing truly leaves until it's been seen. The discomfort here isn't a sign of spiritual failure, it's spiritual focus. You're being taught to stop identifying with your limitations. As you start to reject old narratives, you're creating room for new ones. Think of it as a house being renovated. Dust and noise fill the space, not because it's breaking down, but because something better is being built. Let yourself feel what arises. Let the irritation, the doubt, the triggers come to the surface. They are not here to define you. They're here to be dissolved. When patterns shatter and expectations collapse, people often say, "What did I do wrong?" Yet not every difficulty is a punishment. Often, it is a process. The universe does not place you in discomfort to condemn you. but to awaken the truth buried beneath your comfort. Life isn't a series of perfect plans, but a series of perfect lessons, each one tailored to carve you into who you're meant to become. Trials, when seen through the lens of alignment, are not detours. They are necessary pressure points that expose your depth. Imagine a vine being pruned. At first, the vine recoils. It feels like loss. But in time, that very trimming allows it to bear more fruit. You too are being pruned, not because you are unworthy, but because you are being prepared for more. The moments that sting the most, confusion in relationships, instability in career, the weight of delayed answers, often hold within them a higher invitation. The universe is not taking from you, but clearing the space for what your spirit truly needs. What seems like chaos is often intelligent order unfolding in ways the mind cannot yet comprehend. Many spend years believing they're under attack, mistaking purification for punishment. But ask yourself, are you in bondage or are you being set free? Sometimes the hardest seasons simply mean you're being reminded of what you've been clinging to for too long. The universe is not in the business of breaking hearts without rebuilding them with clarity and wisdom. If something keeps repeating, it's because it's being brought to completion. The repetition is not stagnation, it's refinement through understanding. As this process deepens, it's common to meet resistance. Old identities don't leave quietly. The human ego often fights to keep the familiar alive, even when the familiar is what's been holding you back. The irritation you feel in certain environments, the emotional pull toward outdated behaviors. These are the final echoes of your past self, trying to reassert control. But make no mistake, you are not regressing. You are being invited to transcend. What you feel is not stagnation, it's a shedding. There's a profound quote, often attributed to ancient mystics. The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind. In silence, growth speaks. The chaos around you may not stop, but your response to it will shift. The universe does not require perfection. It requires participation. You don't have to get everything right. You only have to stay present. You're being trained to respond from your higher nature, not react from old pain. Each moment of tension becomes a test of alignment. Metaphorically speaking, you're being pressed like an olive, and only under pressure does the oil, the essence, flow. You're not breaking down, you're being concentrated into your truest form. And even when you stumble, even when the old self momentarily resurfaces, the awareness alone is a triumph. The fact that you care, that you observe yourself, that you desire a higher path. This is proof that purification is working. You are already becoming what you're meant to be, even if you can't yet see it in full. Many interpret intense emotion as evidence that something is wrong, but high emotional states are often signs that something sacred is surfacing. The universe doesn't speak in noise, it speaks in presence, and when you're being refined, presence feels amplified. Joy deepens, sorrow sharpens, uncertainty becomes overwhelming. These are not interruptions to your path, they are the path. Every emotional peak, whether light or dark, is a teacher leading you closer to balance. Instead of running from these feelings, allow them to speak. The grief that lingers, the frustration that flares up, these aren't signs of failure, they're clearing out what you've buried. Unprocessed pain must rise to leave. Think of emotional intensity, not as instability, but as sensitivity being restored. You're becoming more aware, not more broken. And that awareness is the very ground where strength is built. You're learning to sit with discomfort without needing it to disappear. A mind shaped by ego asks, how do I make this stop? A heart aligned with the universe asks, what am I being shown? That shift in questioning opens the gateway to transformation. The moment you stop interpreting emotional heaviness as spiritual weakness, you begin to extract wisdom from your experiences. Each emotion becomes a guide, each discomfort a map. What once overwhelmed you becomes what refines you. Through this lens, purification is not a storm, it's a sunrise breaking through fog. Eventually, the weight lifts, not because the world becomes easier, but because your perception begins to shift. You start responding with clarity where there was once confusion. What used to provoke anger now stirs curiosity. You find yourself watching instead of reacting, breathing instead of bracing. That doesn't mean the work is finished, it means the work is working. Purification isn't an event, it's a rhythm. It doesn't arrive like a storm, it reveals itself like a season quietly changing the landscape. You don't always feel it happening, but when you look back, you realize you're no longer who you were. The universe doesn't transform you by erasing your story. It refines your presence within it. You begin to carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with grounded awareness. There's a new kind of stability inside you. Where once you chased validation, now you seek alignment. Where once you feared the unknown, now you feel peace in uncertainty. These changes aren't loud or dramatic. They're subtle, often invisible to others, but you notice them. You feel the shift in how you speak to yourself, in the energy you bring to your relationships, in the space you no longer give to chaos. And yes, the sense of incompleteness may still linger. There may still be moments where you wonder if you've made any progress at all. But those doubts themselves are proof of your evolution. You're not numb. You're more sensitive than ever, more aware, more tuned in. Growth doesn't always feel like success. Often it feels like quiet resolve, like choosing peace when you could choose panic, like trusting the path when it still looks unfamiliar. You stop measuring transformation by what happens around you and begin to notice what's shifting inside you. That is when you know the becoming is underway. So if you're feeling heavy, uncertain, misunderstood or stuck, recognize what's really happening. You're being purified. The universe is not punishing you, it's preparing you. Every season has its design. Growth is often disguised as discomfort, and transformation rarely feels like triumph while it's happening. But you are not who you were, and you're not yet who you will become. You're in the middle, being sculpted by something far greater than logic can define. Trust the process. The universe is doing its finest work in you.